Hello friends, welcome back to the Selenium tutorial. In the previous session we learned how to set values in text boxes through the Selenium script by using the HTML IDs. Now in this session we would be repeating the same exercise, but here we would be using the XPath instead of the ID. So let's start doing that. I would go to gmail.com. So on this page I would be entering some values in the email ID field. Next I would be entering some values in the password field, and I would be clicking this sign in button. But this time we would be using the XPath, unlike last time where we had used the HTML IDs. So I'm assuming that you have your Firebug installed in your system. So to fetch the XPath I would be using the Firebug. You could see on the top right hand corner the Firebug icon. I am clicking on it and activating it. Activated in few seconds. So the Firebug has activated. If anybody has any doubts like how to install this Firebug, please refer to my previous tutorial where I have explained step by step how to install this Firebug and Firepath on the Firefox browser. So the Firebug has been activated. Now if I want to see the XPath of this email ID, a question would be coming to your mind like, what is an XPath? Basically XPath is nothing but it is some kind of a location. XPath gives the location of the web elements with respect to all other elements in the web page. I'll show you what an XPath looks like. So to extract the XPath, once again I will go to this arrow icon. I would click over here. Now I would hover my mouse to the field whose XPath I need. So I would hover to email ID. When I do that, below this email ID field gets highlighted. So last time what we had done, we had picked up this input ID, this ID email, and used it in the Selenium script. This time we want to use the XPath. So I could not see XPath over here. So how to get the XPath? It's very simple. You have to right click on the highlighted line and select copy XPath option. Once you have copied, you could store it in Notepad. So this XPath belongs to email ID, so I'm just writing it over here, and this is the XPath of email ID. So as you can see, it shows a tree structure like from HTML body, then there are some divisions, and finally this input 14. So it gives the location of this email ID field on this HTML page. So in this way it uniquely identifies email ID through this tree structure. So now if I want the XPath of the password field, once again I would click to this arrow icon and hover to the password field this time. So the password field will get highlighted below. I need the XPath, so once again I would be right clicking it, copy XPath. Now it paste it in this notepad file. So to remember like which XPath belong to email ID and password, I am manually typing pass over here and now pasting this path. So you could see the XPaths are almost similar, only the last thing, the index of email ID field is 14 and the index of password field is 15. So I'll be storing these two XPaths in my notepad file and I'll be actually using them in the Selenium script. So this part is done. If I need XPath of the sign in button, again same step, click on this arrow icon, hover to this sign in button, it would get highlighted below, right click, copy XPath and paste it in this notepad file. I'll just write sign in so that I remember which XPaths belong to which field, because the XPaths are almost common, only the last index is changing. So now how to use these tree structures in the Selenium script. So to show that, we'll once again go to Eclipse. I would close the Firebug before that. Now we would go to Eclipse and repeat the same steps. We would be creating a new class, right click on source folder, new class, This time I would name the class as XPATH because we are demonstrating how to use XPATH, so I've given a logical name. Select this public static void main option, click on finish. The class will get loaded. So in the main program I would start coding. The first step, as always, it is to create the WebDriver object. WebDriver, this time I'm naming my driver as D. I have always mentioned, like, you could give any name. This time I am giving the name D is equal to new new Firefox driver. So this step would be launching the Firefox driver. We have some errors. Now to resolve these errors, the same old step, over to this red mark. The Eclipse would give possible suggestions to resolve this error. I'll select import WebDriver. Now these options will only come if you have correctly configured your Java project with the WebDriver jar files. If you have not configured it, it won't occur. So it's very important to configure it correctly. I'm assuming that you have correctly configured your Java project with the WebDriver jar files. If you have any doubts, please refer to my previous tutorials where I have shown how to configure Java project with the Selenium WebDriver jar files. Else you will not get these options if the project has not been configured correctly with the WebDriver jar files. So here I would import Firefox driver. So now I do not see any errors. Next step, we'll navigate to gmail.com. So this time the object name is D. So I would use d dot get, enter the URL here, http www.gmail.com. So this line would open the gmail.com page. Now we want to enter email ID and password in the respective fields, and this time we would be using the XPath. So once again we would be using the driver object. So d dot, now I would use this method find element. With the help of find element, I would be telling my Java code to find the element whose XPath is, which we have already stored. So this time, as I am using XPath, within brackets I would be writing by dot XPath. When I just click XP, when I just type XP, I get this option XPath. Then now I just press enter. Now within the inner brackets, I would be actually writing the XPath expression which we have saved. So we want to enter something in the email ID field. So I would use the XPath of email ID, which is the first option, and I'll copy the complete XPath over here and paste it. Now I want to send some values in this text box field. So the method for doing that is send keys dot send keys, and within brackets, within double inverted commas, the email ID. So it is test at gmail.com. So I'll be passing test at gmail.com in the email ID field. Next step is to enter some value in the password field. You repeat the same step, d dot find element by dot XPath, and here you would be passing the XPath of the password field which we have already stored. The method would be the same to enter values, that is send keys and any password. These are just random values which we are inputting. So So this step would enter the password in the password field. Now if I want to click on the sign in button, whenever I want to perform a click operation, again I would be using the driver object. Once again I would use find element because now I want to find the sign in button element. I have stored the XPath, so once again I would be using dot by XPath. Now within brackets I would be passing the XPath of the sign in button this time. I could see some red mark over here because here I have the X of the XPath as capitalized. So I would just use the Eclipse editor to correct the error, and now it is correct. Now this time I want to click a button, so I won't be using the send keys method, but this time I will be using another method called click. If I just enter C, I get the method click, the second option. I want to perform a click operation on the sign in button. There is no, like, I could not perform a send keys operation on a button. It is illogical. So the send keys option is incorrect. On a button we could only do is a click. So I am selecting this click option over here. So our code is ready. The code would launch the Firefox browser, go to gmail.com, then it would enter test@gmail.com in the email ID field, 1234 password, which would be masked in the password field, and then click the sign in button. Whenever we have to perform a click operation, the dot click method is used. So let's execute this. I always tell to execute by right clicking and do a run as Java application. There is an alternate way. If you could see on the top, there is a green button over here. If I hover my mouse over there, there is this run option. So I could even click here to execute this script. So I click here this time. The script will execute and the browser will launch in few seconds. So you could see the script has launched the browser. Now it would navigate to gmail.com. Now in the email ID field it would enter test@gmail.com. In the password, some values, like we had entered 1 2 3 4, so 4 masked characters have appeared, and it finally clicked on the sign in button. Since it was an invalid email ID and password, the Google is indirectly asking me to enter these things. So what we have done is, like, we have demonstrated how to use XPath. We used the XPath to enter values in email ID, password, and also we used XPath to click the sign in button. So everything was successful. The script has executed successfully, and I hope you have understood how to use XPaths. So one more point I would like to add is, like, if you could see this XPath of all these three fields, this entire tree structure is called the absolute XPath. Like, there are ways where we could truncate this XPath, which I would be covering in my subsequent tutorials. Like, it could be cumbersome and difficult to use this entire field. Like, we won't be able to differentiate like which XPath belongs to which field. So there are ways how to truncate them. We'll cover them in separate tutorials, but if you want to use XPath, this is one of the ways, and this technique is called absolute XPath. The truncated XPaths are called relative XPath, which we would cover definitely later on, but the intention of this tutorial to explain how to use XPaths to pass values and click button, we have completed. So guys, thanks for joining. Do join me in my